Muy buenos días, buenos días. Hello to everyone chiming in on this session. We have folks calling in on the WebEx. I don't think we have any sites chiming in for this particular session, but we also want to welcome our NPC Spanish section students who likely will be accessing this video and watching this video as part of their activities. We're going to cover a couple of concepts today. Once again, just as a final reminder, please keep yourselves on mute unless you have a question. Otherwise, that background noise will be quite distracting, and we don't want to take away from the quality of this video recording that we're making. All right? Okay, muy bien. Quickly, yesterday in Cliff's lab session, he covered a lot of things, right? Greetings, farewells, some vocabulary, numbers. I think we did numbers, 0 to 30, right? Today we're going to cover two concepts. El alfabeto, the alphabet, and then we're going to learn how to conjugate the verb ser. Part of Cliff's lab session yesterday, we learned subject pronouns. I, you, he, she, we, they. Well, now we're going to start conjugating verbs. So we can say things like, I went, or I go, or you go, or he goes, or she goes, or whatever the verb is, right? But you learn those subject pronouns. We'll reinforce those subject pronouns today as we learn how to conjugate a verb in particular. But first, let's get to the alphabet. El alfabeto. I'm going to take some notes up here. Please take notes accordingly, and then review those notes, and then watch the video again, the video of the lecture that will be posted. Let me just again remind, by the end of today, this lecture will be posted in our Moodle course. And after today, you'll have everything you need for the week, for this week's assignments and activities in our Moodle course. All right, el alfabeto. The good news about Spanish, the Spanish alphabet, or Spanish pronunciation of letters. Spanish words are pretty much pronounced the way that they read. In English, we have a lot of inconsistencies with silent E's. And when the G and the N are combined, the G is silent, or the PH makes an F sound. Or when do you use one T or two T's, or one M or two M's, or one S or two S's, or I before E except after C. All these crazy rules in English. In Espanol, we have a couple of things we need to remember, but otherwise, Spanish words are pretty much pronounced the way that they read, okay? So let's go over the alphabet and make sure we know how to pronounce all of these letters. The first letter in the Spanish alphabet, similarly to English, A, the letter A. In Spanish, it sounds like this, ah, ah. Maybe write that phonetically. Write that down, what that sounds like to you. To me, that sounds like the AH, ah, right? But that's what the letter A in Spanish sounds like, ah. What's next? The letter B. In Spanish, the letter B, be. Be, that's what it sounds. That's what the letter B sounds like. To me, B-E-H, be, sounds like the letter, or is the sound the letter B makes in Spanish, be, okay? Now here's our first idiosyncrasy. The letters B and V in the Spanish language have the same sound. In English, we pronounce the letter B by bouncing our lips off of each other quite strongly, B. And then we pronounce the letter V by biting our lower lip and vibrating our teeth. V, right? In Espanol, ya no. The letters B and V have the same phonetic value, the same sound. Be. Be. It's not a hard bouncing of the lips, but just a light touching, a light kissing of the lips. Be. Be. The letter B, be. The letter V, be. That's what it sounds like, or that's what they sound like in Espanol. Now you're probably wondering, how then do we distinguish between the B and the V when we're spelling words in Espanol? Well, a very common way to do that would be to distinguish the letters B and V by simply saying something like B de burro, B as in burro. Burro is the Spanish word for donkey. Most everybody knows that the word burro is spelled with the letter B, B as in boy, or B as in burro, B de burro. So B de burro would be the letter B, whereas B de vaca, vaca is the Spanish word for cow, and most everybody knows that vaca is spelled with the letter V, so B de vaca, B as in vaca, would be the letter V, okay? So B de burro, B as in burro, or B de vaca, B as in vaca, would distinguish between the letters B and V, because otherwise they have the same phonetic value. How would you tell what we're talking about? All right? Okay, muy bien. All right, after the letter B, we've got the letter C. En español se dice se. Se. That's what the letter C sounds like in español. Se. Now here's our first big idiosyncrasy. Okay, I'm going to go to a separate page. There are only 2 letters in the entire Spanish alphabet that have 2 phonetic values. The letters C and G have both a hard and a soft sound. What dictates the hard or the soft sound would be the vowel that follows. The vowels A, O, and U are what we call hard vowels. They're not really hard vowels, but they're the vowels that give these letters their hard sounds. And then the vowels E and I are the soft vowels. Again, they're not really soft vowels, but they're the vowels that give these letters their soft sounds. So let's start with the letter C. The hard letter C sound is like the English letter K. Okay? It's a K, a hard K sound. Words like, you know this word. Excuse me, pronounce that word. That word is casa. Casa. That's the Spanish word for house. Casa. And we know it's a hard C sound because of the hard vowel or the A that follows. The A giving the C that hard sound. Casa. Right? Casa. The soft letter C sound is like the English letter S. The English letter S. Just a S sound for the letter C. S. Okay? So we have this word here. Pronounce this word. Ciudad. Ciudad. That's the Spanish word for city. That might even have been in one of our vocabulary lists. Might have come up, right? Ciudad. That's the Spanish word for city. But again, you know that's a soft C sound because of the vowel that follows, the letter I. Gives that C a soft S sound. Ciudad. Ciudad. Okay? Likewise, with the letter G. The letter G has a hard sound, and I'm just going to write it like this. G. G. Whatever that sounds like to you. It's a hard G, like choking on the back of your tongue, flexing your throat muscles. G. A hard G sound. And make sure I'm standing out of the way so you can see that. G, right? And depending on the vowel that follows, well, in the cases, the case of the A, the O, or the U, that would give that G a hard G sound. Like this word, for example. You know how to pronounce that word. Most of us know that word, right? Guitarra. Guitarra, that's a Spanish word for guitar, right? Guitarra. And you know that's a hard G sound because of the U that follows, right? Yeah. The soft G sound is more like a strong H or a throaty H, a ch sound, kind of like a loogie, like you're getting ready to huck a loogie G, if that's how you want to refer to it, but just a strong ch, a throaty ch sound, okay? So this word here, for example, let's see. I'm going to scoot that over so you can see it a little bit better. That word right there, somebody pronounce that word. You see it? Gemelo. Gemelo. That's the Spanish word for twin, right? And you know it's a soft G sound, the ch sound, because of the E that follows. Gemelo. Gemelo. You see? Okay, so again, the letters C and G are the only 2 letters in the Spanish alphabet that have 2 phonetic values, a hard sound and a soft sound, and depending on which vowel follows, would dictate whether it's the hard or the soft sound. Okay? All right, muy bien. Let's move on. After the letter C, we've got the letter D, or in Español se dice de. De, right? Whatever that sounds like to you. You're just barely sticking the tip of your tongue in between your teeth, almost like a soft TH sound. De. De. Next, we have the letter E. E in Español. E. The letter E sounds like this. E. Okay? Next, we have the letter F. F in Español. F. F. Huh? Next, we have the letter G. We just talked about that, the letters C and G having the 2 phonetic values each, right? G is the letter G in Español. G is how it's pronounced, okay? Next, we have the letter H. In Español se dice H. 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 Now, the letter H, H, in Spanish is silent, okay? I'm hearing some background noise. Marianne, did you have a question? Okay, once again, everybody make sure they're on mute. H. H is the letter H. Now the letter H is silent in Spanish, and you guys do this, right? I write this word on the board. You know what this word is. You guys went over this yesterday in Cliff's lab session. Hola, hola. That's how you say hello in Spanish, right? Hola. It's not hola. I'm exaggerating. But it's not hola. It's simply hola, right? Yeah. So the letter H, remember that the letter H is silent in Spanish. Next letter, the letter I. In Español se dice I. That's what the letter I sounds like in Spanish. I, like the double English letter L. The English double E. Sorry, double letter E. I'm going to get to the double L in a minute. Salud. Again, everybody put yourselves on mute, por favor. So the I, again, sounds like the English double letter E. E is what the letter I sounds like in Spanish. Next we have J, the letter J. Jota in Español. Jota. And it's got that throaty J sound. Jota. Okay. Next we have the letter K. In Español se dice K. K, right? K. That's the letter K. I'm going to erase all of this. We're going to keep going. Next letter, L. We've got the single letter L, and we've got the double letter L. The single letter L, L, just kind of licking the back of your teeth, top row of teeth. L makes the same sound as the L in English. L. Then we have the double letter L. The double letter L has a Y sound, kind of scooping your jaw, almost like a Y, a Y sound. That's what the double letter L sounds like. And you might recognize this word, llama. Llama, that furry creature from the Andes that kind of looks like a cross between a camel and a giraffe. It's got the long neck, but it's furry and fuzzy. The llama, we would say llama in English, right? But that's the word with the double L. It's correctly pronounced llama. Llama. Okay? Muy bien. L, double L. Let's see. H, I, J. What's next? Yeah. M. The letter M. Oops. I don't want to do that necessarily in red. The letter M. In Español se dice M. 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 Okay? Next we have the letter N. And then we have the letter N with the little tilde over the top. First the letter N. 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 And then we have the N with the tilde over the top. And that is pronounced Enye. Enye, kind of a nya sound. And you've seen this word, or you've seen this letter before in words like piñata. Piñata. We know what a piñata is, right? Paper mache objects filled with candy, and at kids' birthday parties, you get to whack it with a bat and knock all the candy out, right? Piñata. The word is piñata. If I take the tilde off the end, then that word is pronounced pinata. It's not a pinata, it's a piñata. Piñata. So we have to make sure and pronounce or enunciate at least that tilde over the letter N. Okay? Let me take just a quick time out. Clase, por favor. In Español, we have what we call 3 written accent marks or orthography. Orthography. Okay? There are 3 written accent marks, 3 pieces of orthography we need to be aware of. The first one looks like that. It's called an accent. Accent mark. And it's only ever over vowels. Okay? This is the most common of the orthographic marks. You'll see that written accent mark. I'm going to exaggerate. It's just a slash, right? But it appears over vowels. I don't like the way that turned out. Anyway, the written accent mark, it appears over vowels, and it tells us what syllable to stress. So a word like this, that's a Spanish word for telephone, and you think that might otherwise be pronounced telefono, but the written accent mark goes over that E, so it tells us what syllable to stress. Teléfono. Teléfono. We're stressing the syllable that has the written accent mark over it. Teléfono. So that's the purpose of the written accent mark. It also serves to distinguish between monosyllabic words or single syllable words that have different meanings. I'm not going to go into that right now. But if you have words that only have one syllable, it's pretty obvious which syllable you have to stress, right? Well, sometimes by adding a written accent mark, that gives the word a different meaning. Even though it's still just one syllable, gives it a different meaning. But the purpose of the written accent mark is to tell us what syllable to stress. And it will only ever be found over vowels, like I said, and it is the most common orthographic mark in a paragraph of text. You'll probably see that written accent mark a dozen or more times. I mean, there are a lot of words that have written accent marks, okay? The second orthographic mark is that tilde we just talked about, that little squiggly line, okay? It's called a tilde, tilde, and it will only ever appear over the letter N. It only ever appears over the letter N, not over any other letter. But the purpose is to give the N, the N, the ñ sound. So words like piñata, or piña, or año, okay? You can hear those words can be pronounced correctly because of the tilde over the letter N, giving it that ñ sound. And it's not as common as the written accent mark. In a page or paragraph of text, you might only see the tilde over the letter N a couple, 3 times is all. I mean, not very common, right? But you'll see it, right? The third and least common orthographic mark, 2 dots, it's called a diaeresis, and it is only ever found over the letter U. And it's only when the U is preceded by a G and followed by an E or an I, and you got to hear the U. I don't expect you to remember all of that. But if you ever see the letter U with 2 dots over it, chances are pretty good, well, it's preceded by a G, followed by an E or an I. That means you have to hear the U, the W, that GW sound, if you will. And this is much less common, okay? I would imagine in a paragraph of text, even a page of text, you might go that whole page and never see the diaeresis, never see those 2 dots over U. Very, very uncommon. It doesn't appear in very many words at all. But you need to know, if you run across a word that has a letter U with 2 dots over it, you're supposed to hear that U. Okay, it's because the U is preceded by a G, followed by an E or an I. You have to hear the U. I don't expect you to remember all of that, but just know that you got to pronounce the U. So there are the 3 orthographic marks in Espanol, the 3 written accent marks. You'll see the accent mark, very, very commonly used, the tilde over the letter N, and the diaeresis over the letter U, if it meets the other requirements of being preceded by a G, followed by an E or an I. Okay? All right, back to our alphabet. We left off the tilde, the letter N. What's next? O, the letter O in Espanol. O, got to cut it off. In English, we kind of scoop our jaw and finish with the W sound. O. In Espanol, cut it off. O. Okay. Next, in Espanol, the letter P, or P in Espanol. P. P. Next, we have the letter Q, or in Espanol, se dice Q. Q. It's not like in English, Q, scooping our jaw, finishing with that U sound, but rather just cut it off. Q. Q. Okay? Q. Once again, I'm hearing some background noise. Marianne, is that you? Okay, it might not be. It may be. Whoever that is, please take yourself, please put yourself on mute. The background noise, again, just a reminder, mute. Okay, thank you. Anyway, the letter Q. 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 That's what the letter Q sounds like in Spanish. Next, okay, we got the single letter R, we have the double letter R. The single letter R, ere, but then the double letter R, R. You got to roll the tip of your tongue. Can you do that? Can you trill your tongue? Can you trill the double R? R. I'm going to teach you a little trick if you don't know how to do that, if you can't do that. Look at me for just a second. English is a very guttural language. We're using the backs of our tongues, the backs of our throats, those muscles to speak the English language. I'm going to try to move in a little closer here. If you look at me, watch me closely. I can speak to you. I am speaking very clearly. I am enunciating very clearly, pronouncing very clearly the words that I am speaking, yet my mouth is hardly moving at all. You see, when we speak English, we're using the backs of our throats, the backs of our tongues. Speaking Spanish, however, Spanish is a very facial labial language. We're using our faces. We're using our lips a lot more. We're using muscles that have been otherwise sitting dormant this whole time speaking English with our throats. So we need to exercise these muscles so that we can speak the Spanish language better. There's a corny little saying that says, when you speak Spanish with a smile. If you open your face and smile a little bit, your pronunciation, your Spanish pronunciation will be much better, okay? But there's a little trick we can do to exercise, especially our tongue, to be able to pronounce the double R. R, to roll the double R. Take a pen or a pencil or some kind of instrument, shove it as far back in your mouth as you can. Not this way, right, but this way. Shove it as far back as you can, bite down, and just simply speak. Okay?
As you start speaking, you're going to sound a little funny, but you notice very quickly your tongue is getting a workout.
All right? So you're going to notice very quickly, you sound funny, but again, you're going to notice very quickly that the tip of your tongue is getting quite a workout. The tip of your tongue is being pushed back and up, and is getting quite a workout. And before you know it, you will have exercised that part of your tongue enough to be able to trill the double R, right? Roll your tongue, okay? So try that if you need to. All right, let me get rid of this. Back to our alphabet. Oh, what's after the double letter R? Clase, por favor. S, or ese. Ese in Espanol. Ese. That's how the letter S is pronounced. What's next? T, or te. Te in Espanol. Te. What's next? The letter U, or U. U, like the English double letter O, is how we pronounce the letter U in Espanol. U. What's next? B. We already talked about the letter V. Remember the letters V and B, excuse me, have the same phonetic value. B is what they sound like. B. All right? Let's keep going. W, or W. W, literally double U. Doble, the word doble, double, double U. W. I've also heard doble B, literally double V. Looks more like two V's to me anyway. Doble B. Doble B. And I've heard those words reversed. B doble, a V double. It's not called a double V or a W, but a V double. B doble. So you have that option. Doble U, doble B, or B doble. Okay? Next we have the letter X. X. X in Espanol. X is how the X is pronounced. X. And more often than not, it has a hard X sound. X, 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 right? But you may see this word. This is the country Mexico, in Espanol, pronounced Mexico. Mexico. Here the letter X takes on a soft, kind of like an H, a soft H sound. And this is only because, way back in time, the word Mexico actually used to be spelled with the letter J, right? And the letter J has that H sound. Mexico. Mexico. Somewhere in time, I don't know when, I don't know where, somebody decided we're going to get rid of that J and change it to an X, Y, I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason. Someday it'll matter enough to me for me to care to find it out. But anyway, if a word originally was spelled with the letter J and that J was changed to an X, the X keeps the J sound. Mexico. That's why the word Mexico in Spanish is pronounced Mexico and not Mexico, right? So if the X has that soft J sound, it's only because that word was originally spelled with the letter J. Changed to an X for whatever reason, and the X just retained the J sound. Otherwise, you'll see that letter X, or hear that letter X with that hard X sound. All right? Okay, after X, what's next? Y, the letter Y. Whoops, the letter Y. The letter Y in Spanish sounds like this. E. Does that sound familiar? Remember the Spanish letter I had the same sound. E, right? Well, the Spanish letters I and Y sound the same. E. E is the Spanish letter I. Y is the Spanish letter Y. It's not called an I, it's called a Y. Y, literally a Greek I, right? But anyway, the Spanish letter I, E, and the Spanish letter Y, Y, have the same sound. And then last but not least, you've got the letter Z, or in Espanol, zeta. 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 Now remember, the letter Z in Spanish, it's not a buzzing sound. We're not vibrating our teeth together, making that buzzing sound like we do in English. Words like zebra, or zombie, or buzz, right? In Espanol, we're not making that zzz, that buzzing Z sound. In Espanol, the letter Z sounds like the English letter S. It's just a S sound. S, okay? S. Words like sonambulo, or whatever, wherever there appears a letter Z. Sounds like the English letter S, okay? So there you have the Spanish alphabet. You guys are now experts in the Spanish alphabet. Again, not a whole lot of exceptions or rules or exceptions to rules to try to manage. As long as we remember just a couple little things. For example, the B and the V have the same sound. The I and the Y have the same sound. The H is silent, right? Letter Z sounds like an English letter S, and then of course the letters C and G have 2 phonetic values each. As long as we remember those things, then pronouncing words, reading words in Spanish is not difficult at all, because they are pretty much pronounced the way that they read. All right? Okay. Questions before we move on? Cliff, remind me how we doing on time. We get out at what time?
We get out at 11:40.
11:40. We've got time. Clase, por favor. Let's move on. Just quickly remind ourselves what you did yesterday in lab. We learned subject pronouns. Subject pronouns. We're going to learn how to start to we're going to learn how to conjugate verbs, which means we need to know how to say things like I, you, he, she, we, they, right? And I have this written. This is all, right here. This is all, first, second, third person singular, and then first and third person plural. Anyway, we have this written in a very particular way. I'll explain more later. But you learned these subject pronouns. You learned how to say these words in Spanish. For example, I. ¿Cómo se dice I en español? Se dice yo. Yo, yeah, I heard somebody say that, right? You remember. How about you? ¿Cómo se dice you en español? Se dice tú. Now that's the informal you. That's the informal you. So people with whom we have informal or intimate relationships, like my wife, my children, close personal friends, extended family members, I would address them using the informal tú, right? Okay? As opposed to the formal usted. Usted, right? That's a formal way of addressing someone. If I have a more formal relationship, like with my boss, right? Or someone I just met for the first time. You see, we don't get all intimate with people right away when we meet them for the first time. So in that case, I would use the more formal address of usted. Usted. So 2 ways to say you. Tú, the informal tú, more intimate way, or people with whom we have more intimate relationships. And then usted, a more formal way of addressing people. People with whom we have a more formal relationship. Okay? And then down here, we have he and she, right? Remember, él, I'm just going to write it down here. Él is Spanish for he. Ella is Spanish for she, right? And those down here, third person singular. Now something curious, if you'll notice, we learned that the usted, even though usted is second person, that's the formal you, it's listed down here in the third person with he and she. That's a little curious. Don't worry about that. Usted, you're right. You are totally right. Usted is second person. That's the formal way of addressing you, right? The reason why it's listed down here in the third person with he and she is because, as you will see here in a minute, the conjugative forms of the verbs is the same. In the he form, the she form, or the usted form, it's the same. So that's why the second person usted is listed down here in the third person, because it's the same conjugative form. Okay? All right. So I can erase these, get rid of all of this stuff. Okay? I, yo, you, tú, he, él, she, ella, you formal, usted. Okay? And one more thing while I'm at it. Usted, we're often going to see abbreviated as UD, usted. Maybe the U might be capitalized, but for the sake of space and time, I'm going to just abbreviate it, usted, right there. How about we? ¿Cómo se dice we en español? Remember? Nosotros, nosotros, but then we also have a feminine version, nosotras. Nosotras, we're going to speak more about this later, but everything in Spanish has gender, masculine or feminine. And we have to make sure that everything agrees. For example, if what we're talking about is masculine, everything we use to describe that thing has to be masculine as well. If what we're talking about is feminine, every word that we use to describe that feminine thing has to be feminine as well, you see? So in the case of we, if the we group, if I am part of a group of other men, just men, men only, all men, we, us, we, right? Then I'm going to use the masculine nosotros. The masculine nosotros. Sorry. Nosotros. Let me erase that. Nosotros. If the group is made up of all women, females, nothing but females, the we group, the us, we, us, all women, females, then I can use that feminine version, nosotras. Nosotras. You see the difference in spelling. Nosotros, masculine. Nosotras, feminine. Okay? But what if it's a mixed group? What if the group, us, we, are made up of both men and women? If that's the case, if it's a mixed gender group, we default to the masculine. It's easy. If the group is all masculine, we use the masculine, nosotros. If the group is all feminine, we use the feminine, nosotras. That's easy. But if it's a mixed gender group, we default to the masculine and use the nosotros. Okay? All right. And then if you remember, yesterday Cliff also covered there was a vosotros form here, vosotros, which was just a familiar way to make the tu plural, right? Well, I'm telling you right now, we're not even going to worry about that. We're not going to worry about that at all. The only Spanish-speaking country that even uses it still is Spain. And if you find yourself someday in Spain, you'll hear it and you'll be like, oh, that's right, that's the one we didn't learn, but you'll recognize it as being something new, and it's very easy to pick up. It's not difficult at all, but because you're just not going to run into it, really, I mean, unless you're in Spain. You might read some old Spanish literature from the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, whatever. The vosotros form is still found in the writings of the New Testament, the Old Testament, so if you read your Bible in Spanish, you'll see it. But otherwise, we're just not going to see it. It's not really in any of the activities, in our resources, in our books. Spanish-speaking people from the rest of the world, they just don't use it. So we're not even going to worry about it. We have enough to try to figure out without worrying about that, okay? And then last but not least, we've got to use learn third-person plural, right? So look at the board, if él, ella is he and she, what if I'm talking about them, masculine, or them, feminine? I got to be able to make those plural. Ellos, for the masculine plural, or them, masculine, they, masculine, ellos, or they, feminine, ellas, right? If I'm talking about them, a group of women, ellas, feminine. And then the usted, and again, I know usted is really second person, but because the singular usted is down here with the singular he and she, because the conjugated form is the same. Then the plural usted is going to join the plural ellos, ellas, not because it's third person, but because its conjugated form is the same. Ustedes, that would be all y'all, if I'm talking to all y'all, okay? And you're going to likely see me abbreviate ustedes, the plural ustedes, by simply writing it as UDS, period. And again, you may see the U capitalized, but ustedes would be the plural form, right? Like if I'm just talking to you, usted, or if I'm just talking to you, usted, or if I'm just talking to you, usted, right? But if I want to talk to all y'all, and I believe that's the official grammatical term, all y'alls, anyway, if I want to talk to all y'all, it would be ustedes, okay? So let me get rid of all this extra information. This right here, what's in blue, this is what I want you to commit to memory. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay? Look at the arrow, right? We've got I, you, he, she, you formal. Over here we have we, and then they masculine, they feminine, and the you all plural. Okay? What you see right here on the board in blue is what we want you to commit to memory. We want you to memorize this. We want you to wake up in the middle of the night screaming in cold sweats. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted. We want you to have nightmares about this, right? Every time we learn how to conjugate a new verb or a new verb type, this is the model that we're going to use. I had a student one semester that wrote this down on a piece of paper, photocopied it 500 times, and made flashcards. Every time he learned a new verb, he'd just fill in the different spaces. I, you, he, she, you formal, we, they. And he'd learn a verb, verb to study. I study, you study, he studies, she studies, you formal study, we study, they study. He'd fill in the conjugations, you see? So that's what I mean when I say this is what I want you to commit to memory. And again, for the sake of space and time, down here, you might just see me write this as él with the ellipses. But you know that means él, ella, usted. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, right? And again, for the sake of time, you might see me in third person plural, just write it this way. Ellos with the ellipses. But again, you know that means ellos, ellas, ustedes, okay? But in the interest of saving time and space, whoops, okay? I'll just write third person plural, all of those persons with the ellipses. Again, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes. This right here is what we want you to memorize. The sooner the better. Even have nightmares about it. If you're having nightmares about it, that just means you've got it, right? Anyway, we're going to see this over and over and over. Every time we learn how to conjugate a new verb or a new verb type, this is a model that we're going to use. Okay? Questions so far before we move on? All right, how are we doing on time? You said 11:40. Okay, so that being said, let's practice our first verb. We are going to conjugate a verb. The verb we are going to conjugate is the verb ser. Let me write it on another page just for kicks and giggles. The verb ser. Ser means to be. Okay, now there are two to-be verbs in Espanol. We'll get to the other one later, don't worry. But for now, we're going to focus on the verb ser, which means to be, right? So I want to conjugate the verb ser into all these different persons. I am, you are, he, she, is, we are, they are. You see, I want to be able to conjugate this verb, ser. So let's go back to our subject pronouns. And again, what's in blue, remember I told you I wanted you to memorize what's in blue. Call it whatever you want. The verb conjugation chart, verb diagram, verb tree, subject pronoun chart. Call it whatever you want to call it. But that is what I want you to memorize. Okay, so now let's conjugate the verb ser. It means to be. I want to know how to say I am. Okay? Se dice yo soy. Yo soy. That's a conjugation of the verb ser in the first person. Yo soy. I am. How about you are? Tú eres. Tú eres. You are. How about he is, or she is, or the you formal are? Él, ella, usted, es. That's what I meant when I said the usted, even though that's really second person, it's the formal you. The conjugated form is the same. He is, él es. She is, ella es. Or you formal are, usted es. Usted, that usted conjugated form is the same. That's why it's down here with he and she, él, ella, even though technically it's second person. Nosotros, we are. Se dice nosotros somos. Nosotros somos, we are. Okay? And last but not least, ellos, ellas, ustedes son. They are, or you all are. Okay? So there is our conjugation of the verb ser. I'm going to scoot that over just a little bit. Again, to reiterate, I am, yo soy, you are, tú eres, he is, él es, she is, ella es, or you formal are, usted es. We are, nosotros somos, and they are, ellos son, they masculine are, ellos son, they feminine are, ellas son, or you all are, ustedes son. Okay? There's our conjugation of the verb ser. Now, I got a couple more things to mention before I do. ¿Hay preguntas? Any questions so far? This can be confusing if you let it, so just don't let it. Keep it simple. What's in blue? If you have what's in blue memorized, right, then this will be much easier, right? Those subject pronouns. Every time we learn how to conjugate a new verb or a new verb type, we're going to use this model, and that's exactly what we've done with the verb ser. Okay? All right. Now, quick question. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. If I were to ask you how to say in Spanish, ¿cómo se dice I am? How do you say I am in Spanish? Well, you look up here. Yeah, I heard somebody say it. Yo soy. Yo soy, right? They said yo, I, and they said soy. And, I am, right? Yo soy, okay? But let me ask you this. Can I just randomly take these conjugations, what's in black? Can I just randomly take these and move them around and switch them to different people? Can I do that? Can I just randomly move those around like that? Can I put the es under nosotros and the soy under ellos or the somos beside the tú? Can I just randomly change those conjugations like that? Of course not. Of course not. They belong, these conjugations belong with their counterparts, their subject pronouns. The soy belongs with the yo and only with the yo. Eres belongs with the tú and only with the tú. Es belongs only with the él, ella, usted, right? Somos belongs only with the nosotros, and son belongs only with the ellos, ellas, ustedes. So the point I'm trying to make is, you just told me I am. If I want to say I am, I got to say what? Yo soy. But if I took the yo away, doesn't this word soy, doesn't that mean I am? Since it goes with yo and can only go with yo, doesn't it mean I am? Doesn't it? Well, the answer is yes, it does. Now I can include the yo, but if I include the yo, technically I'm saying I am. Sounds like it's coming from the Department of Redundancy Department, right? But the point I'm trying to make is, because these conjugations must go with those subject pronouns, you can't just randomly switch them, then what's in blue, these subject pronouns, really isn't even necessary. If I just simply say soy, I'm saying I am. If I want to include the yo soy, I'm saying I am. It's okay. It's okay to include the subject pronouns. It's okay to get rid of the subject pronouns, right? If you want to include them, include them. If you want to get rid of them, get rid of them. Here's my advice. Here's my advice. Until you know, until you have memorized which conjugation goes where, until you know that the soy goes with yo without even having to think about it, until you know eres goes with tú without even having to think about it, es goes with él, ella, usted, somos goes with nosotros, son goes with ellos, ellas, ustedes without even having to think about it, my recommendation is keep the subject pronoun, keep what's in blue until you know without even having to think about it what goes where. And then if you want to omit the subject pronouns, you can omit them, take them off, right? If you want to keep them, keep them. There's no grammatical rule that says you have to keep them. There's no grammatical rule that says you have to get rid of them. Keep them if you want to keep them, get rid of them if you want to get rid of them. You pick, okay? Oftentimes, maybe just to add emphasis or emotion to what we're trying to say, we'll keep those subject pronouns. Yo mismo soy. I am who I am, right? I'm the guy. I'm not just saying I am, soy. I'm saying I'm the guy. Yo mismo soy. Yo soy. I'm including that subject pronoun to add that emphasis, to add that emotion. But otherwise, there's no grammatical requirement that says you have to keep them, no grammatical requirement that says you have to get rid of them. Okay? Again, my recommendation being keep them until you're familiar with and know without even having to think about what it is, right? And then if you want to get rid of those subject pronouns, you know those conjugations backwards and forwards, then get rid of those subject pronouns if you wish. Okay? All right, any questions? We're getting close. Any questions? Was it 11:40 or 11:45? I'm sorry.
11:40.
11:40, okay. I keep forgetting the time. Anyway, the program's going to cut us off right on time, and I don't want to be cut off without the chance of saying goodbye. So anyway, I'm just being careful watching the clock here. Any questions so far? Gracias, por favor. Okay, remember, Cliff's lab is going to practice these concepts that we've learned today. So in Cliff's next lab session, be ready to practice these. So become familiar, if you aren't already, about these, not just the subject pronouns, what we're going to be using every time we conjugate verbs, but also now we've learned how to conjugate the verb ser, which means to be. So here you have I am, you are, he, she, is, or the you formal are, we are, whoops, right there, and they are, or you all are, okay? So that's our conjugation of the verb ser. Become masters of it, so that tomorrow's lab session, you'll be experts and you can show off all that you've come to learn and memorize, right? And that's all I have for today. No tengo nada más. A menos que haya preguntas, unless there are any questions. Okay, muchísimas gracias. Muchísimas gracias. Adiós. Hasta mañana. Hasta mañana.
Hasta mañana.
Adiós. Adiós.